family, embracing and hugging and holding them while they weep. And it's going to take the church. With every disaster, one of the things we see here in Texas is the church steps up and the church helps and the church feeds and clothes and comforts. This morning I met with a group of chaplains who've been going through the incredibly difficult process of talking to mom and dad after mom and dad who just lost the most precious person they ever knew. And those chaplains are just trying to love them and show God's love. So I want to say we will come through this. To those in the midst of grief right now, that might seem hard to fathom. But Texas will come through this. And I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to these gentlemen here who are working. They are not sleeping. They are working every day. Thank you to the families. Thank you to the Salvation Army. Thank you to everyone who is just reaching out and saying, how can I help? We will come through this, and we'll come through this together. Thank you. And now we'll take questions.
Senator, you talked about how you know kids here and you're taking your own kids to camp. Was it ever communicated to you that there was a need, that it was a priority to have a warning system so people had a chance to escape something like this?
Well, listen, I think anytime you're dealing with major rivers, there's a risk of flooding, and there's always been a risk of flooding, particularly on the Guadalupe River. I will say, in the wake of every tragedy, there are things that are predictable. One of the things that's predictable is that you see some people engaging in, I think, partisan games and trying to blame their political opponents for a natural disaster. And you see that with a hurricane, with a tornado, with a wildfire, with this flooding, where people immediately say, well, the hurricane is Donald Trump's fault. Look, that I think most normal Americans know that's ridiculous, and I think this is not a time for partisan finger-pointing and attacks. Now, after we come through search and rescue, after we come through the process of rebuilding, there will naturally be a period of retrospection where you look back and say, okay, what exactly transpired? What was the timeline? And what could have been done differently to prevent this loss of life? And that's a natural process. I think it should not happen in a bitter and partisan sense, but it should happen in a reasonable sense of saying, what lessons can we learn? And I will give an example. Houston's my hometown. If you live on the Gulf Coast, we get hurricanes. That's part of living on the Gulf Coast as hurricanes hit. And I do think Texas as a whole has learned over time how to deal more effectively with hurricanes. And so you look here, we know the National Weather Service put out an emergency warning just after 1 a.m. and a second emergency warning just after 4 a.m. Now, obviously, most people at 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. are asleep. And so I think we will have a reasonable conversation about, are there any ways to have earlier detection? And some of that, the limits of a flash flood, they're very difficult because they can arise so quickly. But everyone would agree in hindsight, if we could go back and do it again, we would evacuate particularly those in the most vulnerable areas, the young children in the cabins closest to the water. We would remove them and get them to higher ground if we could go back and do it again. Obviously, everyone would. The people in RVs by the river's edge. We know in disasters like this, RVs and mobile homes are particularly susceptible, whether a flood or a hurricane or a tornado, they're particularly susceptible to that. And so my hope is, in time, we will learn some lessons to implement to next time, and there will be another flood, there will be another disaster, but next time there's a flood, I hope we have in place processes to remove especially the most vulnerable from harm's way. But I think that's going to be a process that will take a careful examination of what happened and how can we implement processes better in the future to prevent this same loss of life.
Senator, there were claims that the National Weather Service sent that first flash flood warning that should have alerted phones at 1:14 in the morning. But we have a federal public database maintained by PBS warned that says the first emergency alert wirelessly here in this area to Kerr County was not until after 9 a.m. That was more than 4 hours after the severe flooding had come to this area. Did you know that? Have you seen that? And what's your response, knowing the state and cuts to the NWS in recent months by this administration?
So I don't know the source for what you're saying. All of the public reporting I've seen is that there were 2 alerts that went out, one just after 1 a.m., one after 4 a.m. You know, I can tell you, I talked about the partisan finger pointing. I think there have been some eager to point at the National Weather Service and say cuts there led to a lack of warning. I think that's contradicted by the facts, and if you look at the facts in particular, number one, that these warnings went out hours before the flood became a true emergency level, but number two, the National Weather Service here, New Braunfels is where they were headquartered. They had additional manpower. In fact, they had 3 additional people working that night, anticipating that it was going to be a very dangerous weather situation. I also think it's worth noting that the National Weather Service Union, which has been very critical of the DOGE cuts, has publicly said that they don't believe that the reduction in staffing had any impact whatsoever on their ability to warn of this event. And so, look, I think it is reasonable over time to engage in a retrospective and say at every level what could have been done better, because all of us would want to prevent this horrific loss of life. But I think just immediately trying to use it for either side to attack their political opponents, I think that's cynical and not the right approach, particularly at a time when we're dealing with a crisis and we're dealing with grief.
But does this make you question whether there should be cuts at the National Weather Service and FEMA? I know you've been supportive of FEMA.
Look, I am very supportive of FEMA. I'm very supportive of the National Weather Service. They both perform essential roles, and I think it is critical at every federal agency, particularly when you're dealing with public safety, that we make sure that critical roles are maintained. That's a longer and broader discussion, but as I said, everything from the public evidence indicates that was not a contributing factor to what occurred here.
Is it possible to get Dalton in just to talk about that and the National Weather Service alerts? Because there were escalating forecasts throughout the day from the National Weather Service. What did the emergency managers of the county and other local officials do with that information, starting at 1:15 and onward, where you had the dire river forecast at 6:30? Were emergency managers doing anything to put any processes in place to warn people on the river?
So overall, we were preparing for the July 4th, weekend. So we had National EMR on site. We were, basically stood up kind of a incident command post, if you will, to prepare for that event. So everybody was kind of up looking at weather. We looked at the weather before. When you looked at the National Weather Service, flood map, it spanned all the way from the west side of Texas, with Kerr County kind of being in that upper northeast corner of it. And so everybody, including the National Weather Service, was looking at where's the rain going to hit. We know it's somewhere in here, but with rain, especially when you're dealing with terrain, you got to figure out. Sometimes you don't know until it falls. So once it starts falling, then you got to figure out, okay, how's the watershed going to do this? How's the science going to work? And when you had that north and south fork that we had talked about before, it all converged into one. We do know that a lot of the camps were looking at this just as much as everybody was. With the rainfall percentages, even the National Weather Service had looked at, and don't quote me on the numbers, but it was anywhere between 1 to 7 inches. We got significantly over that. And again, when it goes into very congregated areas and how that watershed shifts into the rivers, that impacts things. And so the camps, obviously, we've heard stories where campers were getting up. They were up at 3:30 in the morning. They were trying to move to higher ground. That's the head. And the other interesting part of the terrain, and we've talked to UGRA folks as well. This is the headwaters of the Guadalupe. This is the beginning. This is where everything forms when it comes into the North and South Fork. And so as those things develop, it develops very rapidly, very quickly, and this rose very quickly in a very short amount of time. And so those campers that were able to do that, it worked. There's been the other question, and I'll just give this one out. Evacuations. Well, why don't we evacuate? Well, evacuation is a delicate balance, because if you evacuate too late, you then risk putting buses, or cars or vehicles or campers on roads into low water areas trying to get them out, which then can make it even more challenging, because these flash floods happen very quickly. That's what.
And so we saw that in 1987, but was there any discussion of evacuation earlier when it wasn't too late? Was there any discussion about that among the officials?
Sorry, repeat your question.
Was there any discussion to evacuate or activate any emergency plans before it was too late, where it would be very dangerous like that?
Well, so again, just like disasters in Texas everywhere, it's very tough to make those calls because what we also don't want to do is cry wolf. We don't want to make sure that we activate it at the right time. It is very difficult, very challenging, especially with this. We're looking at 100 kilometers, right? That's a big straight line distance. That's not even along the river. These areas take a lot of time to get out to. So even when first responders were on the ground at 3:30 in the morning and we had reports, we had first responders that were getting swept away, actually responding to the first areas of rainfall. That's how quick it happened. First responders who have experience, who are Swiftwater qualified, were driving to as soon as the rain started falling, were driving to these areas, and one of them got swept off the road.
Was there any indication between 1 and 4 a.m. from local law enforcement to the camp saying, I know you can't get buses in an hour, but was there anyone telling the camp between 1 and 4 a.m. you need to get the girls to higher ground at the very least, even if they have to walk up there in the rain, as many of them actually ended up doing? Was there any communication from local law enforcement to anyone at that camp between 1 and 4 a.m.?
That I don't know off the top of my head. What I do know, though, is there's 55,000 people in Kerr County. Kerr County is a massive, massive area. From here to those camps is 45 minutes on a good day. And so, obviously one of the big challenges that we have, even when you have cell service, a lot of those areas don't even have cell service. Radio communications towers, radio towers within the hill country becomes very challenging. So there's a lot of areas, especially when weather comes in, where cellular towers are down or you already have bad service. So there's a lot of factors that play and a lot of variables in there on communication that, again, I think as we work through this process, we know everybody has a lot of questions regarding what are the next steps and what's next. And I think all of these things, these are all great questions. And as we continue search and rescue and as we continue to move to the next step, we definitely want to dive in and look at all of those things, from cell service tower to radio communications, or emergency alerting. Any of those things, I think we all really need to take a look at and review. And we're looking forward to doing that once we can get the search and rescue and stuff complete.
In regards to the total number of, before I say anything else, I just want to say thank you to you, all the first responders, everyone involved. We've been praying.
Thank you.
We've been praying. The media's been praying. Thank you guys for doing that. I've got two questions. One for you, try to get an accurate count on number of missing. I know you can't. I know we don't know we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
But do we know a rough idea on total estimates that are still missing overall throughout the county? And then one other follow-up. This may be for Senator Cruz. A lot of speculations being made about this being somehow man involved with the weather modification, with some of the rainmaker technology, working with farmland. Do you think any of that, is there going to be any investigations into that, or can you communicate anything on that?
Let me answer your first question. I'm definitely turning that second one over to him. So on the first question, with missing persons, so obviously we have the knowns, the can't miss it kids, which is the numbers coming down as the sheriff has stated, and then we have the unknowns. But we don't know what we don't know. We actually have a 5 hotline line. It fluctuates between 3 and 5, but we're working on it. We get calls 24 hours, 7 days a week. We haven't hit the weeks yet, but we're still taking in calls. We are collecting all that information. So we don't have a solid number that we're willing to talk about right now. We do know that it is a lot, because we also are getting a lot of fake calls. You're looking. This is a worldwide discussion, and we're dealing with scammers. Victims' families are being reached out to, saying that they have their kids pay me money. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. We're dealing with with mental health issues, where people are calling saying they have visions. All of these things we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and we're having to vet this information, and it becomes very taxing on our people. Again, this is an extremely heartbreaking. This is, if not the worst, one of the worst disasters in this region in a very, very long time, even beyond 1987. And but we're
best estimate, like dozens or hundreds, or just to give people an idea.
A lot. So,
Yeah,
let me.
Yeah,
Not to get into the weeds on, people are asking lots of questions, and where should we start the investigation at?
To the best of my knowledge, there is zero evidence of anything related to anything like weather modification. And look, the internet can be a strange place. People can come up with all sorts of crazy theories. What I know is a reality is that a whole lot of Texans are grieving right now. I will tell you, I was visiting with one parent who was talking about online, being harassed online because their information was public that they had a little girl who was missing at Mystic. And look, there are a lot of people who are messed up, and my call for everyone, there's a time to have political fights, there's a time to disagree. This is not that time. This is a time just to reach out, support each other, go volunteer at the Salvation Army, give them money, go volunteer at your church, you know what I did when this happened? Just go hug your kids. Because I got to tell you, I hugged my girls with tears in my eyes, because every one of us who's a parent, there but for the grace of God go I. And nothing will fill the void in these moms and dads' hearts, but they'll make it through it. And every one of us, we have an obligation to come through and help them make it through it. And look, Texas will come through, and let me say, Kerr County, the Hill Country is incredible. It is beautiful. And these summer camps, Camp Mystic is an incredible Texas institution. For a century, it has made a profound difference helping young girls become strong women in Texas and across the country. And so, for me at least, I'm praying for these camps. I'm praying for all the campers, everyone implicated, everyone impacted, and I hope we come together and stand as one doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, good morning, folks. If you were not here earlier, I put out some housekeeping notes. I want to repeat that. Search and rescue operations. We're asking everyone to adhere with that direction. Hey, excuse me, can we either keep it down or shut the door? You bet. TFR is still in effect. We can't have the media flying drones. They have interfered with our air operations, and it has to stop. It's our intent to set aside an hour each day to make some of our leadership available to y'all for one-on-one interviews. This is above and beyond these daily press conferences. These interviews will be 3 to 5 minutes in length, and they're going to be held between 1 and 2 p.m. Obviously, we won't be able to accommodate all outlets each day. So if you're part of an affiliate, we ask that you coordinate with your colleagues from your network and submit one request, and then share that. You can request interviews by emailing our Joint Information Center at jic@kerrvilletx.gov. One more time, that's jic@kerrvilletx.gov, and I will repeat that again before we're done. Our unified PIO team will confirm your interview, your time, and who you're going to be able to interview at least 1 hour beforehand. You're welcome to request specific leadership, such as the sheriff or the city manager. However, given the fluid nature of response and the quantity of requests that we're expecting to get, we cannot 100% guarantee that you're going to be able to speak to the interviewee that you would like to. Footage. Our PIO team will be in the field today, and we're capturing images and B-roll of response and recovery efforts. As soon as it can be made available, a link will be emailed out from our JIC email address for you to download materials for your own use. Contact information. If you were here yesterday, we passed around a sign-in roster. If you signed in yesterday and provided us your contact information, you should be part of our media list, and you should have received a confirmation email last night. If you did not get that email, or if you were not on that list, you can be part of our media list by emailing us at jic@kerrvilletx.gov. One more time, jic@ KERRVILLETX.gov. I don't know the time of the next press conference. As soon as we have that information, we will push it out through our social media. Thank y'all. Yeah. So go ahead and just send in your report. Yeah, so we're it's for joint information.
I was going to ask him when the next meeting is.
When we send out the confirmation information, we'll tell you exactly what it is.
Please don't touch my mic.
We'll have to go, okay. We'll have to make a 5 minute.
Okay.
Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Dennis Carlos. How did the press conference look? Okay, good. Now, I'm back up on 1. Do you see the shot? We're in the parking lot. Can you see it? Okay, thank you. All right, bye-bye.
You've got a year's worth of supply in those pockets, don't you?
Yes, sir.
My goodness, the sagging. What was the news? We don't hear any news out here. What's the
They
latest
confirmed 75.
count? In Kerr.
Yes.
Okay.
So
But overall, I think 82.
Yeah, that was extra. Kendall as well.
48 adults, 27 kids, 10 still missing from camp or unaccounted for from Camp Mystic, and 1 counselor.
Okay.
Highway 39 is still closed
All
off
right.
to the public.
You guys doing okay?
Yes, sir, we are.
All right, hang in there.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Again, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that press conference stopped when it did, because I was the battery hat on
Yeah.
was out.
Okay.
And I do know that Texas PR girl, that girl, she was getting pissed.
Oh, the blondie?
Yeah. She's at one cat, and they kept on that one from CNN. Jesus Christ, give someone else a chance.
Oh yeah, I was like, homegirl. Shut up.
No, I mean,
Like, for real. Well, glad to know I know someone that. I'm glad to know I know someone else that's here. And I also know, like, this other guy, but I don't like him, so. He's one of those that's like, he wants to just do everything for him. Like, he's not going to help you out in any way because he doesn't think he's above all that.
oh, okay. But the guy we talked, Pablo, the beard.
Uh-huh.
I asked him if he had an extra cable, that yellow cable. And the group that he was with, they had one. So, I mean, that's what I mean about helping you, you know. But there were some that,
Yeah, he's not known, or he wasn't known that. And this is on a personal level. He slept with my friend's girlfriend at the time.
he slept with my friends.
With my friend's girlfriend. And it was a whole thing because they were best friends, and like the 3 of them always hung out. It was a mess. It caused a lot of stir in the El Paso media world.
They land somewhere over there.
I was about to ask. Vivian says they're going to have a double box on me the whole time showing just the flooding.
Oh, call Terry.
Uh-huh.
The desk, or Brian or someone, man. Tell them that an afternoon crew, when they send the afternoon crew, hopefully they haven't left yet. Tell them to get with engineering and bring a spool of BNC cable.
I don't think Terry, it's Natalie. I was like, Terry's not here today.
Okay. But you know, maybe Elizono's there or someone, you know, some
Yeah.
manager.
I'll talk to Natalie. She's on desk, that's why. To bring a spool of cable?
Of the BMC cable.
Hello, you said?
Hi, Natalie. It's Tawny.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, so we just wanted to give whoever the afternoon crew is a heads up if there's going to be another presser. Carlos says to talk to engineering and bring another big spool of cable, so that way they just have enough.
Whoa, wait. Sorry, you're breaking up. Say it again.
That's okay.
Not a presser.
I said whoever the afternoon crew is, Carlos is suggesting they bring another large spool of cable, just so that they have enough when they come out here.
BMC cable.
BMC cable.
VMC cable.
Yeah, tell it's the cable that connects the live view to the camera.
Connects live view to camera. Okay. Yeah, they're sending Jay to cover the next one. That'll be Jay and Blake, I believe.
Okay. Blake's already out here, so I guess he's meeting him out here or something.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, did he not have extra stuff? I'm guessing.
Not the. Sorry, frickin' helicopters are landing. Okay, well, if anyone hasn't left yet, yeah. Also, did y'all see about the one-on-ones that they're offering? Okay. All right, just wanted to make sure y'all got that. All right. Thanks. Bye. There is no time to like pick a spot.
They didn't have time to do that? Jesus Christ, man.
That's fine. I don't care.
What time is it?
10:50.